Willow Creek Springs presents Healthy Living with your host, Joe Grumbine.
All right. Well, welcome to the Healthy Living Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Grumbine. And today I have a very special guest, and his name is Dr. Robert Hoffman. And as many of you may know, I'm sharing my journey of conquering cancer with you all in a series of podcast episodes. And as I've been exploring this solution, which is, very complicated and lots of possibilities, I came upon a compound called methionine. And it turns out this is a pretty important compound in the human world when we don't probably even know anything about it. And in exploring this compound, I came upon a man who discovered a lot of things about this and many other things. His name's Dr. Robert Hoffman. And many years ago, Dr. Hoffman, you discovered some incredible things. And I'm going through your CV, and geez, you have 135 pages of life accomplishment. So I don't want to muddy the waters too much. I want to jump in and just say, first of all, thank you for all the work that you've done. And I know that this kind of work, while we're exploring alternative therapies and therapies in general, the world of medicine and discovery is so riddled with politics and influence, and it's amazing anything gets done out there at all. And you've come upon many years ago a discovery that, in my opinion, should have changed the way medical books are written, and yet it's kind of obscure. Why don't you share us a little bit about this discovery of methionine and its relationship to cancer cells?
Okay, Joe. Well, thank you very much for having me on your podcast. Our goal is to try to help people with cancer as much as we can. So this story of methionine is an old story. It goes back 66 years, back to our NIH, our National Institutes of Health, and the National Cancer Institute of the NIH. Back in 1959, a Japanese scientist was visiting. His name was Takeshi Sugimura, and he was one of the first Japanese scientists, doctors to come to the States to study after the war. And he was in the lab of Jesse Greenstein, and he was working on rat tumors growing in rats.
Right.
And he said, okay, I'm going to give them a diet, and I'm going to take out one amino acid out of each diet. And I want to see how that affected the growth of the tumor in the rat. And the one amino acid that, if he took it out, slowed down the tumor, was good old methionine. So we've known for 66 years that methionine is a bad guy for cancer.
Well, it's a good guy if you're cancer.
Yeah.
A bad guy if you're human.
Yeah. So methionine is the bad guy, the real bad guy.
Right.
So Dr. Sugimura published this work. It's freely available to everybody in the archives of biochemistry, biophysics. I hope everybody takes advantage of PubMed. It's got 40 million papers on there. It's run by the National Institutes of Health. His paper's on there, 1959 paper. You can see it. It's very straightforward. Take away methionine from the rat, and the tumor slows down a lot, more than taking away any other amino acid. So this discovery was dormant for about 14 years or so. Nobody followed up. Don't ask me why. Maybe it wasn't cool. Around that time, it was very fashionable to study viruses, and at one point, it was said that viruses are the cause of all cancers, which is wrong, but there's been a lot of wrong stuff. So then about 14 years later, where I myself landed at the Massachusetts General Hospital, Harvard Medical School that time, I was 29 years old or so. And the paper came out, a couple papers came out, one from a really great oncologist who became actually our patient 45 years later, Joe Bertino,
Wow.
a real hero of the world of oncology. He was part of the teams that developed the chemotherapy that cured childhood leukemia, lymphoma, and even adult lymphomas. And he found that the lymphoma cells in culture, not in the rat now or the mouse, in culture, required an extraordinary amount of methionine. What the heck is all that about? Then another paper followed that from UCLA, and they replaced methionine with its precursor called homocysteine. And the normal cells, hey, they did fine in culture. Bing, bing, they didn't care. Methionine, homocysteine. But the cancer cells wouldn't grow. Wow. You could have a condition where the normal cells do great and the cancer cells do bad.
We like that. Sounds
And
like
in fact, to this day, I don't think there's ever been another way to make the cancer cells do bad and the normal cells do so good. The difference between the good and the bad, I don't think has ever been replicated with another approach.
Really?
So
Wow.
I had just landed in the lab of John Littlefield, a great man. He discovered the basic way to make hybridomas. He should have won the Nobel Prize, but he was a very modest man. It was his lab, and his kind of right-hand man was a fellow called Richard Irby. Irby took me under his wing and taught me about methionine metabolism. And I was so bored. Why I have to learn this expletive stuff? Then I saw Bertino's paper, Halpern's paper. I said, hey, that's for me.
Yeah.
So I was a little suspicious that people were saying, well, the cancer cell can't make methionine. I didn't believe it. When I was a graduate student and across the river in Harvard, I studied a fungus that wouldn't grow, but was using oxygen like crazy. What was that all about? So here these cancer cells, they don't grow when you substitute homocysteine for methionine. What's that? What's that? Well, I found that the cancer cells make tons of methionine, but they need an external supply. What's that? And I realized this is like an addiction. They make tons of this methionine. They need more. It's like the cocaine junkie, just can't get enough of it.
And it's true
Cancers
that
are methionine junkies. Sorry?
It's true that healthy cells do not create methionine. Is that correct?
They do. They do.
Healthy human cells do too.
You can't live without methionine, Joe.
I was under the impression there's an article that I read though that said methionine is only produced from food sources and the human body does not.
Well, they're full of, you know what?
Wow. Okay. Well,
they're full of that scatological term. So, I tell you, methionine. Every cell can make methionine.
Okay.
And two things happen. Well, first of all, let me tell you, methionine is one of the most important amino acids in proteins. Often it's the lead-off amino acid. The lights. The lead-off amino acid when proteins are being made. A good lead-off hitter, like, Ichiro or whatever.
Right.
And methionine has another special function in the cell, and here's where we're going to get to the nitty-gritty soon. The methionine And it's called methionine because it has a little carbon with some few hydrogens on it called a methyl group, can donate this methyl group indirectly to all kinds of other molecules in the cell, including the proteins that regulate gene function. So methionine is a really, really special amino acid. Okay, now talk about making methionine. When the cell, normal cell, cancer cell, when they make methionine, they require a form of folic acid.
Okay.
And that's the form that's predominant in the blood supply.
Great.
But there's other forms necessary in the cell. And the cell, so if the cell can't make methionine, it can't recycle the folate that it gets from the outside. It can't recycle it, so it can be modified to other forms that are needed for DNA synthesis and other critical parts of the cell. So making methionine is essential for the life of any cell. So those articles that say, ooh, this cells can't make methionine and only can get it from the outside, they're just wrong. There's a lot of wrong stuff. That's human nature. Okay, so we found that the cancer cells need lots of methionine from the outside, but they make tons of it from the inside, and we called it an addiction. And we found over the years, and it's been validated by others, that the need, a main need, I don't want to say the main need, but it may be, for methionine in the cancer cell is for these methylation processes that have gone awry in the cancer. Too many and going the wrong way. Too much methylation in the cancer cell, and it's all screwed up, to use the vernacular. So the idea then is starve those cancer cells of methionine. They need so much more than the normal cells. You can knock down the methionine intake in a human being way down, and still the normal cells are doing good. And our diet, our crazy diet, is just so full of this methionine. Now, let me give you an example, Joe.
Yes.
Take a nice big apple.
Right.
Remember eat an apple a day, it keeps the doctor away? I'll tell you why. That apple, nice big juicy apple, I have one every morning, all cool in the fridge,
Methionine
is 1 milligram of methionine.
Exactly.
1 little tiny milligram of methionine in this big juicy apple. You take the equivalent amount of salmon, it's got 750 milligrams.
I know.
Salmon is poison to the cancer cell, or for the cancer patient. It's the super nutrient for the cancer, but it's poison for the cancer patient. So the first thing the cancer patient has to do, the very, 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 very first thing, is get off the animal products, get onto the vegan diet immediately, and then start looking at that color-coded methionine chart I gave you, and follow the green pages. This is the first principle. Now, so how do you deplete methionine in the cancer patient, or even in the normal people? It's good to be on low methionine. You put a baby rat on a low methionine diet, its lifespan increases 30% and never gets sick.
Wow.
Come on. Okay, so the diet is good, but it's not enough to get to where the cancer patient needs to be. The cancer patient really needs to take an enzyme that'll break down methionine, because even the low methionine diet, you're taking in quite a lot, but much less than everybody else. So the really good news about methionine ACE, which breaks down methionine, we found in the lab that it can be taken orally. It's a protein, but it survives the digestive system. If we could find an insulin that could be taken orally, Joe,
oh man,
we'd make Elon Musk look like a pauper.
Exactly.
But that's ain't the way it is.
Right.
No way insulin can survive in the digestive system. But the methionase the gene of which comes from one special bacteria that lives in the soil that can live under the most harsh conditions, heat, cold, acid, base. It makes it that the methionase can stay in that digestive tract about 6 hours. And even
Nice.
on your low methionine diet, you're taking in some methionine, it breaks it down.
Nice.
So, okay, first step. All right. So you have an aggressive cancer. What are you going to do? So, people whine and about chemotherapy, the side effects. But I tell you, for an aggressive cancer, chemotherapy absolutely is necessary, but it's not sufficient if you have metastatic cancer or you want to keep the cancer from becoming metastatic. Tons and tons of research has gone into that chemo. And it's passed a lot of trials, and of course it has some efficacy. But we need to increase the efficacy. And what we found over the 50 years we've been working on this stuff is that when you deprive the cancer cell of methionine, it becomes more sensitive to chemo. This is the magic. This is the real magic. Combining methionine restriction, if I could call it that, based on diet and also methionase, sensitizes the cancer cell to every chemotherapy we've ever tested. So here we are. And we've given our methionase to about 300 patients. We've got about 50 regulars. A lot of them are doing really good. A lot of them we've even helped stage 4 patients. It's not the magic stuff. There's no magic stuff in cancer. But patients who are diligent with their diet, their methionase, and their chemo, they do better. There's no question in my mind about that.
Now, your approach is one that is refreshing. I worked with a lot of practitioners, doctors, all sorts of people that have all sorts of thoughts and beliefs about alternative therapies and treatments and traditional chemotherapy, radiation, whatnot. Everybody's got their opinion about how things should be. And what I find is that a lot of times people will tell me, well, this will work because I know. And I'm like, well, cancer's not like that. Cancer is very unique, and every single person's cancer has got its own fingerprint, just like our own fingerprints. And so there aren't these cut and dry answers for people like we would be led to believe. And you're
Joe, every
acknowledging
time
that.
you see somebody give you the cut and dry answer, you go quack, 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 quack.
Exactly.
Um,
Exactly.
so, and this alternative thing, that's a lot of BS. We're not talking about alternative. We're talking about improvement.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to throw away 75 years of chemotherapy. No way. But we got to improve it, especially for metastatic cancer.
Got it.
And one of the key ways of improvement, maybe the most important, is methionine restriction. Not that other thing. Now we got patients, we've been doing some stuff in the lab. We found that we combine methionase with ivermectin, and it's synergistic, and wow. So we've got a lot of patients adding ivermectin on, and we're going to be adding other things on. It's
That was
about
another
adding.
question that I have, is because, there are so many therapies, let's just call them that, and whether we call them natural, alternative uses of things like ivermectin, it's a drug that was
Yeah,
designed.
repurposing.
Right, there you go. And we're finding more and more people are experimenting or testing new uses for old things, and it's happening all the time. Is your position that reducing the methionine and adding the methionase would be likely to improve the efficacy of any other treatment or just certain types?
Well, that's a real broad statement, but I would say maybe most of them.
Okay.
Maybe.
All right.
I
Fair
got to
enough.
put a maybe there. We don't have a clinical trial. I can tell
Right.
you this with 100% certainty of laboratory experiments.
Right.
100%. The clinic, we're just beginning. We've
Right.
published 12 case reports so far, but they're only case reports. They're not
Right.
clinical trials. So I would say, based on the science so far, there's a darn good chance when you're on methionine restriction and there's no downside to it.
Right.
Got to watch your calories a little bit.
Yeah.
There's no downside, and you're on chemo. There's a good chance you're going to do better. A real
So
good chance.
that comes down to another element. Like I said, I've been dealing with this. I was diagnosed just in October, but I've been dealing with this lump for a long time, and I knew it was something that had to be dealt with. So I've been training myself to live better, to be healthy, have a diet, have a sleep regimen. I'm doing all sorts of health related things. And the way I see it isn't that any one of these things is going to be a magic cure for my cancer. It's that it's going to help my body to be able to be strong enough to fight this thing while it's trying to consume my body. And at the same time, hopefully it's going to weaken the tumor and, give my body a better chance at it. I don't look at it much different than that. I just think it's it's a battle. You have cells that came from your own body that have mutated and become something else. So I look at myself.
Maybe not so much mutated as reprogrammed.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, they've changed though. They're not like they were for whatever reason. They're not like they were. They don't act the same. They don't think the same. They don't have the same drivers. And
that's for sure
an important thing. And what I've realized, and I'm spending a lot of time. It's my full-time job to beat this thing right now. So that's what I do.
Good.
And I'm not, I have these podcasts because I want other people to learn what I'm learning as I'm doing it. And when I beat it, we'll all learn what I learned, and it's all good. But meanwhile,
fair enough. That's good.
Yeah. But meanwhile, what I'm finding is that, there isn't this one answer. And, things like, changing your diet. Like initially I heard I've got cancer. The first thing I did is go, okay, I got to shut sugar out. So I stopped the sugar, stopped the carbs, went to sort of a keto-ish sort of diet. And of course, my natural instinct was, well, increase the protein because I can have protein. And it turned out that, that was not the right answer.
That's the worst thing you could do.
I understand that now. But, your cravings are driven, I think, in no small part by this tumor, which is trying to survive. And I think it sends signals to your brain that says, hey, little whispers in your ear, little things that cause you to
give me my methionine.
Yes, exactly. And so while I'm busy chomping on sardines and salmon, thinking I'm being healthy, I know. And then I'm going, why is this lump not getting smaller? And I know. And just a week ago, I come to discover your article of the methionine addiction of cancer. And I'm like, so no, what have I done? And so I shift gears.
All right, it's not too late.
No, it's never too late. And so now I'm looking at this diet, and so there's this double-edged sword though of being healthy and cancer and losing weight. And it's important, I believe, to maintain a healthy weight, not, if you're overweight, that's its own.
Let me tell you how to do it.
All right.
How to
good.
do it.
Yes.
Okay. So if you go on the really, really strict low methionine diet, as the early of this century clinical trials said, 2 milligrams per kilogram per day, you'll lose weight.
Right.
Okay, what do? So when you take methionase, it's not so strict.
Okay.
Put in a little more of the rice, put in a little more of the potatoes. When I was in Boston, they pronounced it potatoes. And then sprinkle all your stuff with tons of olive oil.
Yeah, I'm right there.
No methionine and lots of goodies and tons of calories. So you kind of titrate yourself.
Yeah.
You get on the scale every day. How did I do? Yeah. And then say, well, maybe I got to do this today or that today. Right. You can keep the weight up. It's not it's no biggie.
I agree. I just realized that it's a thing you got to reckon with. And
you treat it like an experiment. You eat whatever you ate the day before. You get on the scale and you get the number, and then you go from there.
And I think maybe that's one of the most important things for anybody that's trying to solve a problem. Like I've got a orange sticking out of my neck. and it's trying to kill me, well, then let's pay attention to what we're doing. So when you talk about, journaling what you're doing and paying attention to how do I feel when I do this or that, I think there's maybe couldn't be a more important piece of that puzzle, because we forget what we eat, we forget what we do.
Yeah,
And
keep a little log. It's not
yeah,
hard. And there's all these little apps you can use.
right,
You can have a little scale in the kitchen. You see,
right.
takes 5 seconds to see how many grams you're eating.
Absolutely. And so, yeah, just being mindful of that is important, I think. I'm really glad that there's macadamia nuts in the world. It turned out that that's like the one loophole.
Well, they're a little bit high, but a little bit of them is okay.
Well, they're compared to the other nuts. I mean,
That's right. That's
you're
right.
looking for
It's
something
all it's all the numbers, Joe. You can have a steak.
right.
You better not eat for the rest of the week.
Exactly. Well, it's interesting as I'm exploring this, and I fast and I do things to, you know, mitigate the downside of a diet that's not perfect. And the one thing I refuse to do is eat a joyless diet. So, as I'm
Low methionine doesn't mean joyless.
right,
Oh no, you got
means
to come on our Zoom, our Sunday Zoom.
I'm looking forward to it. I will be
They
there.
know how to cook up stuff.
Yeah, I can't wait. I'm very much looking forward to having conversation with these folks, and that's part of it, is sharing our experiences. There's always ways
That's 99% of it.
right. Agreed. I'm so
The patients on that Zoom support each other with encouragement and with knowledge and
wonderful.
innovation.
Well, I was excited when I heard that you had that, because I believe strongly that that's critical to the solving these problems. And you being a part of this, you're listening to the thought process of all these people involved, and you're liable to be garnering some data that'll be helpful for you.
Every Sunday I learn a ton of stuff.
I love it. And you don't have to have cancer to learn from it.
No.
Even better.
For sure.
Well, listen.
And folks that stay on that Zoom,
yes,
they're all doing good.
Good.
And some of the people, they drop out and they stop doing good. It's heartbreaking. It's you can't force people, and it's heartbreaking to see people drop out and drop off. Oh man.
One of the things I think that people need to realize, that, if you get diagnosed with cancer, or you have a loved one that's diagnosed with cancer, your whole life is going to be different from now on. And
for sure.
You're never going to be the same, and it doesn't ever stop. It's like having an addiction or something, where you just don't ever get to put it down. You're always going to be.
The cancer never really goes away.
Exactly.
Even when the doc says you're in remission, you got to be diligent your whole life. But it's okay. It beats being under the grass.
You betcha. That's it, 100%. And that's what we're doing, is we're showing how to overcome. We're showing how to, be crafty, how to find a good answer, and when it doesn't seem that there might be one in front of you. And
you got to be smarter than the cancer.
Exactly, 100%. And I look at this way: the cancer is resilient, it is
and smart,
motivated, and it's smart, but it doesn't have our kind of smart. It has a survival kind of smart, and we have a smart that can think outside of survival. And so I think we're going to be able to, over time, figure it out and figure out how to keep it.
We're in the process of figuring it out.
Exactly, 100%. I in looking through your CV, I tell you, there's every single point that you have here we could talk a half an hour on, and I would love to spend more time.
Joe, I'm yours. We can go on once a week if you want.
I would love that. I would absolutely love that. Well, let's do this.
The Thursdays could be our night, whatever. Perfect. You let me know.
I think that's a fantastic approach. I am very eager to jump in on Sunday and be part of that conversation. And I think as we get to know each other and the way that we're working, I think that we can complement each other's efforts. And I definitely,
absolutely,
we're looking to solve this. So Dr. Hoffman, I am now, part of my own community now. When you get told something like this, you're all of a sudden you're like, oh, well, I got to go find some new people that know what they're, that can share this experience. So I'm on a quest and sharing, information with a lot of new people. And, I believe that's critical to the overall solution of this in finding answers. When somebody else, maybe my grandkid, one day ends up with something that I have, instead of being told, well, this is what you got to do, and having to go and solve it yourself, or go down this long, lonely road and try to figure it out, they might go, oh, here we go. Here's your answer. And it'll be, solved and over without a lot of pain and grief. That's really what it's all about. We're trying to
It
create
is. It is. It is.
for our
Joe,
grandkids.
how many people in your audience?
Oh, few thousand. I mean, it's a young show.
Wow.
But we got definitely more and more people. It's a healthy living centered audience, so it's not just about cancer. And
That's
we talk
right.
about a lot of things. And I think that's the key to it, is remembering that the living part is the part that we need to focus on. And there'll be plenty of time when we're not living to be not alive. So,
Yeah, we got all eternity to be dead. We better take advantage of the time we got.
Absolutely. So I found you in a very sort of circuitous way. I wasn't looking for you. I was looking for an answer to this. And through my searching, I found your work, and then I found you. Um, let's make it easy for people. If we find people that see themselves and they're looking to resolve their cancer or other problems, and this methionine solution or methionine A's solution might be something they want to explore, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
They get a hold of me. And people say, well, what about your website? I say, yeah, I got a website, but my best website is PubMed.
All right, there you go. You're absolutely right. I think that's where I found you more, and I went.
I mean, when people say, oh, this and this and this, show me the publication. Show
Right.
me the data. Come
Yeah.
on. Don't
No,
tell me what you think and what you believe. This isn't the church.
100%. Well, the cover page of your CV tells it all. 60 years in science. So
You got it.
Dr. Hoffman, I am pleased and proud to have this conversation with you.
And I feel the same with you.
Fantastic. I look forward to seeing you on Sunday. And then
Okay.
if
And
we
then
can,
you tell me when you want to be on next. I'll be there.
let's just do it next Thursday at 6. We can do this.
You're on. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And thank you to
Joe.
everybody
Thank
supporting.
you. See you on Sunday. You're going to meet a lot of really cool people.
I can't wait. Thank you, Robert.
Thank you, Joe.
All right. We'll see you next time.
See you real soon.
All right.
This has been another episode of the Healthy Living Podcast. We produce this show so that people can share their stories, people that have overcome obstacles, people that are undergoing obstacles. We're building a community of health-minded individuals. If you're interested in supporting the show, please leave a review on the platform you're listening to it on. If you're interested in becoming a guest, please send an email to itsjoegrumbine@gmail.com, or you can send a note into the notes section of the podcast. All right. Well, thank you for supporting this show, and we hope you've enjoyed it.